Hi, Njabulo. Welcome to BizTalk. That's my great pleasure having me today. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to share with you what we're doing.
The pleasure is mine. Thanks to you for coming. So let's start talking about imperative waste solutions.
Yes. So Imperative Waste Solutions is a company that I started in 2016 because South Africa has a very, very bad landfill crisis. And it's actually a very global crisis that's actually happening. And most waste streams, especially hazardous waste streams, are getting sent to landfills. And landfills are extremely full. So it's got to do with like fast fashion, medical waste, mining waste, and toxic waste streams. They've got no place to go. So they end up being sent to landfills. And right now the technologies are still underdeveloped and haven't been pushed to the world for them to be used so that we can make sure that these waste streams stop going to landfills and are recycled. It's a big movement that we're trying to do around the world, and it's a zero emission, anti-landfill, hazardous waste collection and recycling movement that we are working on. And the problem is that the globe faces a landfill crisis. As sites in South Africa in particular, they're expected to be full in a few years. And provinces are not being granted new permits, and decades and decades of this has been piling up. And South Africa produces upwards of 65 million tons of this hazardous waste, of which only 6% of it is recycled. And we're trying to step in to make sure that this 6% goes as far up as it can. And the issue, like I said, is not only South African, it's global. So we look to collect hazardous waste from hospitals and mines. Sustainable technology that does not pollute is the kind of technology that we want to use. And we want to redirect this hazardous waste from landfills, and we turn this hazardous waste into reusable products such as fuels and sustainable building materials. And we capture emissions diverted from landfills on our waste data platform and then sell that data to banks and institutions because they want to use it to make a good ESG score so that they can get a good rating from the credit agencies so that they can give loans to more sustainable projects and to other clients that need help from the banks. So our main aim is just to reduce, reuse, recycle hazardous waste. We're proudly sponsored by Pfizer, and after investment, investors will immediately gain 30 hospitals and 49 clinics just from one private hospital group alone. We also have letters of intent from one national mine, and you gain entry into global markets to service the very same emissions crisis. So scalability is quite rapid because the technology that we have is by our technology partners, which are in Canada. So it's going to be a case of you just making sure that you decide that, okay, you're in Dubai, there's a landfill crisis, get Imperative to come there, be able to fund us for the machine, and then we'll be able to do the services there. And we won't have to buy trucks fully. We won't have to buy things. We'll just outsource because we want to make sure that our business model is de-risked as possible. We want to be one of the first companies or waste companies that don't actually own most of their materials and most of the technologies that are used. So the trucks will be outsourced, the warehouse will be outsourced, only the technology will belong to us. So firstly, the industry isn't unified and uses outdated operational plans. So for instance, in the medical waste service, providers charge low costs for both waste destruction and collection combined. Then they use their highly polluting technology. Then they go dump it in our full landfills. Whilst clean technology provides charge much higher costs. So the people who use higher technology charge an extremely high cost to go collect the waste. And they don't actually do collection. It's not part of their service. So what happens is that when they do want to collect, they charge extremely high fees, which then means that there's a huge gap in the market for an affordable collection cost and affordable disposal cost. So that's where we come into the markets. We want to make sure that when we collect, the fees are low and we take it to a clean technology that is then doesn't release emissions and then turns the waste streams into reusable products. So that's our gap in the markets, and that's what we've identified that we can do. So the investment ask for now is 1.8 million US dollars. This is for the clean tech, trucks, working capital, and our data platform. And we make money by developing our waste data platform to make sure that we capture the emissions, and we make money by charging collection fees and destruction fees. After 1 year, our annual revenue is projected to be 9.2 million US dollars. This is from one hospital group alone. This is if we are able to take all their waste streams once you've invested in the technology, because the technology can take between 5 to 10 tons a day, which then means that we'll be able to charge for these tonnages per kg. And that's where our revenue comes in, and we've got all our financials ready for you to see. Our children are now born with birth defects, with an increase in asthma and lung disease. Therefore, the time is up for you to remain on the sidelines whilst your potential investment languishes in landfill. Imperative ticks off 8 out of 17 of UN Sustainable Development Goals. Our waste is trying to tell us something, but we just keep throwing it away. I mean, even Greta Thunberg said, we've heard enough from politicians, and the world needs real private investors to achieve the real change it so urgently needs. So I leave it to you. If this is not imperative, then what is? Thank you for your time, Max.
Thank you so much, Njabulo.
No problem.
Thank you very much for pitching your company and idea, but not only idea. This is something very great. We need to try to solve this problem because it's pretty huge. Waste is the biggest problem, and it's imperative to make it working, right? Because in any way we need to consume, although we are consuming too much. And we need to start also thinking, recycling, upcycling, and trying to waste as less as possible. But anyway, we always have waste. So we need to find a way to turn waste into something positive and not negative. So I really thank you for what you're doing. Now, can we talk a bit more in details about the hazardous technology?
Yes, no, of course we can. So there are different types of technology that can be used in industry, but the problem with them is that they are far too expensive and they've been underdeveloped, and they end up releasing emissions into the air, which then means it's not carbon neutral. We are trying to make sure that we're either carbon negative or carbon neutral. So what we've done is that we've partnered with partners in Canada to develop a technology that they already have that is fit for the South African market and will also be tailored to wherever it is that the investors want to take it, whether it be Norway, whether it be Dubai, or whether it be in Angola, because we're mainly targeting Africa. So the technology is a combination of gasification and pyrolysis, which is, to put it into easier terms, it's a use of thermal treatments, which means a combination of heat and gasification, which then strips the waste into its original molecules. So it turns it into a gaseous form. That gas is called syngas. Then that gas is then redirected into the machine so that the machine is self-sustainable, so it doesn't have to use extra electricity or too much electricity. What is also used for that syngas is that it is put into the hospitals of the mine so that it can heat up the boilers so that they have hot water for cheaper, so they don't have to keep using electricity for the hot water for their patients. So it's a win-win situation for us and who we service. Then after the syngas has been used, the little bit that is left behind is then a sustainable reusable materials, which is used for buildings, cement mix, fertilizer, and biochar. And what biochar is a much cleaner burning version of the charcoal that we currently use now, because that charcoal is obviously from the ground and it hasn't been cleaned up. So when you burn it, you can see all the black stuff coming into our atmosphere, which is exactly what we don't want. But the biochar that we have, because it's high in carbon and high in nutrients, it's a clean burning fuel and it burns for longer and it ignites quicker. So that's a technology that we are using.
So you are using a technology already in place from your provider coming from Canada, if I understand?
Yes, so basically, yes, Max?
Please go.
Yeah, so basically, they have developed it and have received many awards for it. It's got many accolades, and it's so clean that they even put it inside the hospital. That's how much it doesn't release emissions and it doesn't release any toxic air. They put it inside the hospital and even inside ships so that they can power their boilers and do waste management inside the long cruise ships and on long boats that don't stop by anywhere. So that technology is being used, but it is currently being only used and wanting to be used by us in South Africa and in Africa. So once we carry on, if we get 3 or more machines, we've got it in place that will be the sole license provider of this technology in Africa. So it would be a good head start for us to make sure that it is ours and we'll be able to use it across the whole continent.
Let's start with Africa, because before you need to start with Africa, suppose, and after we move outside and to the entire continent. Now, in Africa, you are talking about hospitals, but can be used also energy. This energy can be used by others, than not only hospitals, no?
Yes, for sure. Not only hospitals. And as you know, the reason why we target the hospitals is because every village, every province, every town you go to, there is a clinic and there is a hospital. And all that waste has to go somewhere. So we made sure that we made our service a niche market. But then, as you said, we don't only focus on that because we understand that waste comes from an abundance of sources. So we can take general waste, we can take household waste, we can take wastewater, we can take waste from mines, as we said, we can take waste from landfills. If the landfills are really too full and they actually want to close down, we can take the waste off the landfill so that we can treat it so that the landfills are alleviated and it's easier for them to have some breathing space and release less toxins. So our technology can in fact take everything, but we just wanted to focus on the bigger problems in Africa, which are fast fashion, as I'm sure that you know, even with fast fashion as well, because users only use their clothes for about 8 months, 6 to 8 months, and the materials are extremely hazardous, but the rate at which the corporations are pumping these fast fashion items, it's ridiculous. So they are piling up in our landfills. And even when people donate from Europe to Africa, when they donate clothes, 80% of those clothes actually end up in landfills because they either don't fit the people, or because fast fashion is now so prevalent, they wear it for a little bit of time and then discard it. So fast fashion is also a huge part of the waste stream that we're looking to solve in Africa, because our landfills are piling up from the fashion from Europe and from our own people. So it's medical waste and fast fashion, but we can take general waste as well.
Can we talk about the process? How do you collect the waste, and how do you, collecting, transportation, and also after it start burning? How this process works?
Okay, so basically we've tried to make sure that our process is very simple, because what we're seeing right now that's happening in the recycling industry is that government is trying to make people sort the waste. They're trying to make people separate the waste at the source, and people are really not into that. I mean, it's important to separate the cardboard from the glass, from the aluminium, from the plastic, but people end up they just want to throw their waste away. So what we've done is that we make sure that our technology doesn't need any sorting. So from collection points, we can just collect it from either the bins or inside our plastic bags. We put it into our vehicles where we weigh the waste, and we write down on our waste manifest how much it weighs. Our bins, because they have a tracking system, have already collected how much CO2 and how much emissions is in the bin. That gets stored onto our cloud server, which then we can use to show that this hospital has deterred this amount of carbon emissions from going to landfill, or this mine has deterred this amount of waste from going to landfill. And this is all done by our smart waste bin system, which then also alerts our drivers that the bins are 70 to 80% full, so that our drivers don't have to keep doing different routes. Then once our drivers get there, they collect it, put it into our vehicle, as we said, we sign it off, we wait. From there, we collect it to our facility. Our facility then has man management, which then decant the waste into the machine. It doesn't need sorting, nothing needs to be taken off. And then the heat treatment begins. Once the heat treatment has begun, then the byproduct is left, the energy is used, and the byproduct is then packaged and sold to its off-takers.
What about the energy produced? How do you store the energy? If you store the energy, how do you put the energy into some kind of grid?
So basically, because in South Africa, our grid is very flimsy, we will use the gas and CHP, a combined heat and power generator to then turn the gas into electricity, which then is either pumped into the grid, which is an option if the grid allows us to do that service, which we can do. And the second option, as I said, would then just, instead of turning that gas into electricity, we just use that gas straight away to then just heat the boilers, which make the hot water for the hospitals and the mines, so that they don't have to pay extra for generating their own electricity for those boilers to boil.
So in case you are not producing energy, you need to transport gas, no?
Yeah, we don't transport it. We make sure that it's already fit into the system. So it doesn't need to be transported. Yeah, it's just put into the hospital. It's already connected to the boilers, and then that heat just goes straight to the boilers and then boils it.
So they are using already pipelines already in place?
Yes. We connect our pipelines to theirs.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of waste, let's see, the number is pretty impressive in Africa, but not only in Africa. Now, of course, you will start in Africa where the problem is huge, but wastefall is everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. And how do you plan to move outside Africa after testing your business, your concept in Africa?
Well, the way that we plan to scale outside Africa is just to demonstrate with our demonstration machine at any location in the world just how it works. And once the waste producers see how it works and how efficient it is, I don't have a doubt in my mind that they'll be able to decide that they want to use our services, because we won't charge exceptionally high fees, which is what's happening right now for those who have this kind of technology. They charge extremely high fees. We will undercut the market and can undercut the market. We can afford to, because of how we price our technology. And that's how we are planning to scale rapidly across the globe. Because as you know, as you said, the waste is prevalent everywhere. But what is not prevalent everywhere is affordable, clean waste treatments, which is what we provide.
I mean, can we talk a bit of the business model, how your service can be affordable for the many?
So the way that it's affordable is that we basically set up a de-risked business model. I've set up mouse traps, and then I've made sure that we have not plundered or will not plunder our capital into too many trucks. We will have about 3 trucks in every country. And then from those 3 trucks, we'll then outsource the rest of the trucks, then making our labor more cheaper and making us not have to focus on logistics, as that's not the core focus of our business. And the core focus of our business is the waste management. So that will drop prices significantly, as well as the fact that there are normally 2 trips that happen with general waste disposal. It's the first trip to collect, that then takes it to the treatment facility, which then uses their dirty technology, which pollutes the earth. Then from there, they take that to the landfill, which then sits there and releases the harmful emissions. So with us, where we cut the costs again, is that there's only 1 trip that's done, collection from the points of disposal to our facility, which then does everything in terms of treatment, sanitation, sterilization, and recycling of the material. It's all packaged at our site, and then our off-takers then come and collect it at our site. So we have found many ways to de-risk the business model, as well as to cut costs efficiently because of our sustainable business model.
What about who's going to pay for the business? Who are your clients?
So our clients are private hospitals, mines, and depending on where we are, it can be municipalities that want us to service their cities. They're the ones who pay for the service, and we charge per kg. And then if they want to change the payment system to be a flat rate, we can discuss that. And those are the types of people that pay for these kind of services.
In terms of energy produced, can hospital, I don't know if I can say, be fully independent using energy independent using your service? I mean, do you think you have enough waste, which would be lovely to be completely burned and used to produce gas, electricity for these hospitals? Can one day hospitals in Africa, for example, be fully, can use your energy to fully comply with their need?
Yes, they can. And in due time, we'll be developing a much bigger technology, which will then take more tonnages, because right now our technology can take a specific amount, which won't be able to power more than one hospital, because one hospital, depending on the size though, doesn't have the capacity or the tonnages for us to produce the feedstock, because most of the heavy tonnages are actually glass vials, and it's the glass, and the glass doesn't produce much energy, doesn't have energy output. Where the energy output comes from is the food waste, from the PVCs, the plastics, the anatomical waste, all the other more natural biodegradable sources. So the answer is yes, it can power a whole hospital, but that whole hospital has to give us all their waste, every last bit of their waste, for us to be able to do it. But it is very possible, and that's actually something that we want to do by 2030, 2025. It's something that we would have wanted to start scaling across Africa to show them that the waste from the hospitals is extremely reusable.
So in this case, hospitals should not even bring the waste to the land. They just give it to you, right? Without through everywhere, because not only wasteful, but waste are placed along the river, along everything. It's pretty astonishing how badly it can be. So it would be better. It would be better if they can store actually in your facility, so you can just do the job immediately and give back the energy. What about you've been talking about fast fashion and medical, but waste comes from everywhere, comes from everywhere and from everything. In your opinion, something like your service can one day very well and widely used can bring this wasteful to zero, which means if I walk in this place, there is no waste anymore, but actually I can free walking. I mean, sometimes I just go, I like to walk to the river. It's absolutely horrible, disgusting, how much waste is there. And it's bad for the people, but it's absolutely horrible for animals and everything. So,
yes, really. And that is exactly what we're working towards. We're working towards zero waste. And that is totally possible. I mean, you've got places such as Sweden that have such a great waste management system that they actually have to buy their waste. There's no waste anywhere. They have to buy it. And that's what we're looking to do here. We want to make sure that when you go for your walks, you actually wonder where all the waste is. That's how well we want the waste management and how closed the system must be. It must be so circular that the collection, the disposal, the creation, and those who make the waste must all be part of the same system and the same infrastructure, and that they know that once they produce this material and whoever they sell it to, it needs to not end up in landfill. So it is totally possible to have a zero waste place where it becomes a utopia of just cleanliness. The animals are kept healthy. Our children are not born with birth defects. The rivers are kept clean and everything works perfectly. But that's going to take time, particularly in Africa, because we don't have these kind of structures in place. In Europe, it might be quicker with the rise of hydrogen and waste to hydrogen and waste to energy, whereby all these waste streams are going to be used for a really great purpose. So you can expect to see that kind of environment pretty soon. But in Africa, it's still going to take time, but it is very possible.
I do believe so. Waste management is going to be key for our future. In bad, good. So we need to be very much taking care of it. Are you going to work with local governments?
Yes, 100%. We have started engaging local governments. We've told them about our solutions. We've asked them if they want to partner, if they can fund us as well, so that we can collect from the municipalities. And that is something that will actually assist the community more instead of just focusing on different private sector places. If you get the government involved, it means that we can get the people involved. And if we get the people involved, it means we get the communities involved. And if we get the community involved, we basically have a whole province and then a whole country involved with proper waste management and a circular economic system, which then will reduce the waste to zero and provide for really good products to be reused, such as the energy and such as the biochar and the fertilizer. So yes, we are getting them involved, and that's the basis of a good start.
I mean, how impactful are your facilities? I mean, sometimes you have smelters, which is absolutely terrible. They can't be placed close to the city or close to the town because they are too big, or they are even too bad to look at, or too noisy, or whatever it is, or even too polluting. You are not polluting, but how impactful is? I mean, can be placed, and also, are you going to use small or in many places, or maybe a big one in just one place for a big area around it to be covered?
So basically, to also help with cutting costs, we don't want to have many facilities, so that we'll actually have on-site treatment. So wherever your waste is produced, we can just come put our machine there, because our machines are not that big. That will also cut your costs again, because now you don't have to pay for the initial collection fee, and you don't have to pay for the initial disposal. Our people will be on your site. Where your waste is generated is where we will be. So we don't have to be in different places and open up bigger warehouses and expanding capital in those ways. So that's how impactful we will be, especially with regards to reducing the waste on site, so that we can already stop the emissions from coming out and polluting our air and our biosphere.
We talk about your round, you are raising 1.8 million. How exactly are you going to use this money? Where are they going to?
So it's going to go to buying machines. It's going to go to getting 3 or 4 machines, getting 2 trucks, developing our waste data platform more, because it's in its infant stages, whereby our waste data platform, like I said, it's a cloud platform. There are technologies that we put into our bins, which then measure how much carbon emissions are in the bins, send it to our platform, and then we store that to sell to the banks, and so that our clients know how much they've saved the environment, and how much pollution and how much dirty air they've stopped from going into our atmosphere. And that's exactly what our money will be used for, and a bit of working capital as well. So it all goes straight into operations and straight into decarbonizing the world and stopping the waste streams from going to landfills immediately.
What about data? How you said already a bit about the use of data. Are you going to share this data with who exactly?
So this data is mostly wanted by the banks. And the reason why the banks want this is because the banks are trying to find a way to become sustainable. And a way for the banks to become sustainable is for them to only fund companies that are trying their best to stop pollution, to stop the environment from becoming dirty, and to fund companies just like ours that are helping with circular economic innovations and helping with the sustainable development goals that have been set by the UN. Because banks now are being rated by the credit agencies, and credit agencies don't want to give money to or give a good rating to banks that fund companies like mines or oil companies that do spills in the ocean, and they spill their oils all over biodiversity, or companies that release all those toxic fumes into the air. Banks are being looked at to see who they fund, and they have to be sustainable in who they fund. So that data is then sold to the banks to show that, hey, look, this business is choosing us to get rid of their waste. We get rid of their waste in a very green way. And this is how much carbon we have stopped from going into the atmosphere from their waste. And this is how much they're actually helping with creating a circular economic solution. Then the banks look at this data and they form something called an ESG score, which is an environmental, social, and governance score. And that score will then be rated. You'll be rated by that score. And then the banks can decide that, okay, this company is actually a green company. We can give them more funds. We are able to give them extra financing. We are able to fund their projects more, and we're able to rate them highly because they are sustainable. And banks want to be sustainable, and the credit rating agencies want to rate banks according to sustainability now. So that's who we sell our data to. It's to the banks.
What's your vision for imperative waste solution?
Sorry?
Your vision for your company.
So our vision is to be the most sustainable company in Africa, and to make sure that we divert the landfill wastes and diminish landfill waste as much as we possibly can. We see a future whereby Africa is totally emission-free of this current bombarding of waste coming from overseas, coming from ourselves, and coming from key waste producers. And we believe that we'll be able to implement this solution across Africa as it is needed desperately.
What's your message to investors? Why they should invest in imperative waste solution, and yourself, of course?
The reason why you should invest is because, as we understand and as we know, our time is running out, and what's happened to the dinosaurs is happening to us at a much slower rate, and we have until 2030 to reverse the global emissions crisis. So instead of waiting around and sitting around and looking to see what's the next to invest in that's going to just not only just line the pockets, but to save the world, it's a win-win situation for your pockets and for the future. You invest in imperative waste solutions because our sustainable solutions are needed globally, and it leaves you feeling good about where your money is gone, knowing very well that it's helping with our crisis. We cannot hit the tipping points because we're close to reaching the tipping points with regards to waste and the emissions in landfills. And you will have a very good conscience knowing that your money is going to saving the world, saving the future of our children's lives, our grandkids, your life, in fact, because even right now to this day, 1.2 million people die every day just because of carbon dioxide poisoning that's in the air, just because of landfills. And your money can be used for a greener solution and a better future.
Njabulo, thank you so much for coming to BizTalk. It's been a very great pleasure for me having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.